Damn, I feel alive. No more stressing out, no more messing around, no more getting by.
One of the caveats that I do have some personal information that I did get personally involved in was some information that had to do with the Stargates and Looking Glass, and more specifically the 2012 problem with those projects. The popular opinion of what's out there right now is that the project was shut down because there was a problem when we approached 2012. I've heard it described a number of ways, but to my knowledge, the problem is that the timelines converge on that point in time. And when you know enough about the Stargate projects and the Looking Glass project to know how string theory works and how the possibility of possibilities works and how making one choice over here doesn't necessarily mean that the other choice couldn't exist at the same time. But once you get your brain wrapped around this subject, you find out that at the end of 2012, in an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time, no matter which choice we make. And that's important to the people that had access to Looking Glass because they would use Looking Glass knowing the choices that they would make and the future would pop up. The big mistake was coming up with the possibility of future. And when we started using a computer to say, well, if we make this choice, it's 79% possible that this scenario happens, and 23% are possible or whatever, using round numbers, that this scenario would happen. The understanding at the time was that was realistic. However, if you go down the road further and free will continues to exercise itself on this game, that 79% possibility sometimes changes very, very fast. But if you look at the situation in a point of time, it seems very realistic that that's the greatest possibility. What happened was people, very smart people, began to figure out that something big was coming up. Something that made it so all the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the Looking Glass inherently ended up in the same future. And no decision, no possibility changed past a certain point. That's the big secret. All possible timelines lead to the same basic set of history in the future. That is what sends everybody that has all of the information, that knows everything, into a blind panic. The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game, and nothing could be manipulated beyond that point. When I was in the military, it would have been before '97 when I got in trouble. One of my particular areas that I was amazingly intuitive about is problem solving / mission planning, or more specifically, taking a bad mission and fixing it. Certainly knowing how string theory and possible futures works makes it so you can work your mind very quickly to see the reality of what's happening and decide what decisions need to be made to change it for a particular outcome. At a certain point, after they're done hearing the computer tell them, this is what's going to happen, over and over and over and over again, all they become focused on is, how do we fix it? What I do know is that I was called in and asked to solve this problem, this timeline contraction problem. And I eventually did my due diligence and did all the investigating and basically only had one piece of information, and that was reinforcement. The computer's right. The timelines will contract down to some inevitable thing. There is an inevitable event. It's been forecast, it's been predicted, it's been fed to us in a slop trough of what they want us to believe will happen. They don't actually have control over what happens. They only have control over the reaction, and it seems that no matter what they try to do to cause their desired reaction, it's going to have an opposite effect. Much, much easier for me to explain today what that process is as opposed to back then. If I had to give it a name, I would say it's the awakening process. It's an evolution of consciousness that cannot, will not, and no matter what decisions or possibilities are injected into the equation, eventually it all resolves down to us all learning the truth and becoming aware of this massive dam of lies that has been built that keep us from knowing massive volume of information that we should otherwise possess. Essentially what happened with Looking Glass. Not only did they not want people to use it anymore because they knew it was just going to burp out the same thing, but at the same time they didn't want anybody else to know what it was saying, I'm sure. Because that information was of a monumental concern when I was in the military about how to prevent this inevitability. Now, at first I thought it was end of the world. Now I see end of the world as end of their world. The biggest cherry on top of all this conversation would be a synopsis to say that if I could convince everybody out there that for all intents and purposes, what we believe to be true eventually becomes true. If somebody convinces us that a major disaster is going to happen in the very near future, a major disaster happens in the very near future. If we don't buy into that fear and accept that there's really nothing that we know is going to happen, and accept of whatever happens, that makes the convergence of the timelines happen as naturally as possible. Any attempts to try to go away from this one inevitable conclusion, I again see as a new beginning, an end of this reality, the beginning of something that we can't even possibly understand based on the level of our beliefs currently. But when all that information comes flooding out, there's going to be no denying what's true and what's a lie or what's illusion. Basically what we're experiencing right now is two master chess players sitting at the board. And one of them looks down at the board and sees that he's in checkmate in 7 moves. And he looks across at his opponent and he knows that his opponent sees it too. So there's no getting out of it. So at this point, the loser can only prolong the game. Both players know the game is over. It's only a matter of time before he does this, and then you're forced to do this, and then he's forced to do this, and eventually checkmate. We, as a race, if we could understand that the game is over, that based on the rules of the game, the bad guys have already lost, the good guys have already won. Yes, there's moves left on the table, but those moves are being forced by the player that is going to win. The only way that checkmate can't happen is if the player that's winning makes a mistake. But from all of the information that I've gathered, all of the information that's been given, all of the information that's been vetted to me, it seems pretty obvious that the good guy player on the side of the chessboard knows exactly what has to be done to win the game. And so at this point, any mistake would be all but impossible. But again, you really have to understand the game to know that the guy that's losing is lost. And I'm sure most people sitting watching a chess match between two advanced chess players know the game's over long after the two players know it's over. Because they can't see the board and see that there's only 7 moves left.
Yakaladığın yerde keseceksin yani. Kimi? Onları.
Onlar kim?
Ateistleri. Allah'a inanmıyorlar. Yani inanmıyorlar, Allah kitabına inanmıyorlar yani.
Hayvan abi onlar, insan değil.
Nasıl ya? İnsan abi, bildiğimiz insan. Nasıl hayvan oluyor?
Öyle insan olmaz abi. Yani bizim gibi insanlar değil onlar.
Onlar hepsinin canı cehenneme.
Neden baba?
Öyle Allah'a inanmayan, yani canı cehenneme.
Allah belalarını versin. Yakaladığım yerde tek tek onları şırıngayla kan alırım onlardan.
Nasıl şırıngayla kan alırsın yani?
Taktım mı arkadan çıkar.
Baba.
Ya bırak şimdi abi ateş işte. Allah peygambere inanmıyor işte.
Tamam inanmıyor ama bir şey anlatmaz mıyız ona yani? Anlatalım. Gidelim İslam'ı anlatalım ona.
Abi işte verelim, onları da gırtlakla kessinler.
İşte
Canlı canlı böyle.
Ama insan değil mi onlar?
İnsan değiller abi.
Onlar cahil insanlar.
Nasıl yani cahil?
Gavurlar, yani ne bileyim mi baba, onlar dümenci insanlar, yalancı insanlar.
Nasıl ya?
Evet, ateist ne demek? Şerefsiz bir insandır, şimdi yalan söylemeyelim.
Neden şerefsiz ki?
Çünkü Allah'a inanmayan insan, insan değildir. Hayvandır, hayvan da olamaz zaten. Hayvan da Allah'a inanan bir insandır. Beyinleri yok yani.
According to research, in order for a culture to maintain itself for more than 25 years, there must be a fertility rate of 2.11 children per family. With anything less, the culture will decline. Historically, no culture has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate. A rate of 1.3, impossible to reverse, because it would take 80 to 100 years to correct itself. And there is no economic model that can sustain a culture during that time. In other words, if 2 sets of parents each have 1 child, there are half as many children as parents. If those children have 1 child, then there are 1/4 as many grandchildren as grandparents. If only 1 million babies are born in 2006, it's hard to have 2 million adults enter the workforce in 2026. As the population shrinks, so does the culture. As of 2007, the fertility rate in France was 1.8, England 1.6, Greece 1.3, Germany 1.3, Italy 1.2, Spain 1.1. Across the entire European Union of 31 countries, the fertility is a mere 1.38. Historical research tells us these numbers are impossible to reverse. In a matter of years, Europe as we know it will cease to exist. Yet the population of Europe is not declining. Why? Immigration. Islamic immigration. Of all population growth in Europe since 1990, 90% has been Islamic immigration. France, 1.8 children per family. Muslims, 8.1. In southern France, traditionally one of the most populated church regions in the world, there are now more mosques than churches. 30% of children ages 20 and younger are Islamic. In the larger cities such as Nice, Marseille, and Paris, that number has grown to 45%. By 2027, 1 in 5 Frenchmen will be Muslim. In just 39 years, France will be an Islamic republic. In the last 30 years, the Muslim population of Great Britain rose from 82,000 to 2.5 million, a 30-fold increase. There are over 1,000 mosques, many of them former churches. In the Netherlands, 50% of all newborns are Muslim, and in only 15 years, half of the population of the Netherlands will be Muslim. In Russia, there are over 23 million Muslims. That's 1 out of 5 Russians. 40% of the entire Russian army will be Islamic in just a few short years. Currently in Belgium, 25% of the population and 50% of all newborns are Muslim. The government of Belgium has stated 1/3 of all European children will be born to Muslim families by 2025, just 17 years away. The German government, the first to talk about this publicly, recently released a statement saying, "The fall in the German population can no longer be stopped. Its downward spiral is no longer reversible. It will be a Muslim state by the year 2050. Muammar al-Gaddafi of Libya said, "There are signs that Allah will grant victory to Islam in Europe, without swords, without guns, without conquest. We don't need terrorists. We don't need homicide bombers. The 50+ million Muslims in Europe will turn it into a Muslim continent within a few decades." There are currently 52 million Muslims in Europe. The German government said that number is expected to double in the next 20 years to 104 million. Closer to home, the numbers tell a similar story. Right now, Canada's fertility rate is 1.6, nearly a full point below what is required to sustain a culture. And Islam is now the fastest growing religion. Between 2001 and 2006, Canada's population increased by 1.6 million, 1.2 of those immigration. In the United States, the current fertility rate of American citizens is 1.6. With the influx of the Latino nations, the rate increases to 2.11, the bare minimum required to sustain a culture. In 1970, there were 100,000 Muslims in America. Today, there are over 9 million. The world is changing. It's time to wake up. 3 years ago, a meeting of 24 Islamic organizations was held in Chicago. The transcripts of that meeting showed in detail their plans to evangelize America through journalism, politics, education, and more. They said, "We must prepare ourselves for the reality that in 30 years, there will be 50 million Muslims living in America. The world that we live in is not the world in which our children and grandchildren will live." The Catholic Church recently reported that Islam has just surpassed their membership numbers. Some studies show that at Islam's current rate of growth, in 5 to 7 years, it will be the dominant religion of the world.
The most powerful country in the world is Saudi Arabia. It is not the United States with its mighty military and bases around the world, technological advancements. It's not China with its billion population, million-strong army, and killer satellites. It's not the old, Russia. They've seen them had their day. EU is suffering through the worst economic downturn with country after country facing bankruptcy. The most powerful country in the world is Saudi Arabia, and the most powerful leader in the world is the King of Saudi Arabia. That is why President George Bush kissed the King of Saudi Arabia and led him around by the hand at the White House like a prom date. Barack Obama bows to the King of Saudi Arabia because they know that he is the power. As Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the most powerful country on the face of this earth. For all you kids out there born before internet and cell phones and laptop computers, back in 1973, not even 40 years ago, there was an Arab oil embargo put out by the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Now that membership also includes, get a load of this, Egypt, Syria, and Tunisia. Tunisia had just had a major reform where they kicked out their old leader who was dictator, embezzler, corrupt, whatever. Egypt is having that same problem right now with people uprising. Syria has problems. Possibly Libya could be along the way, and so could Yemen. But the three, Egypt, Syria, and Tunisia, think about what's happened there. So, here's the thing. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the world's most powerful country because it has oil pumping from under the ground. Oil is the economic blood of every country. This has not changed since 1973 when oil was $3 a barrel. Imagine $3. When the embargo hit, it spiked 70%, reaching $5.11 a barrel. At the height, it went as high as $12 a barrel. European countries abandoned their close ties with the United States because the embargo was based at the United States because the US was resupplying Israel with military weapons. Even Japan went arm length to the United States. Hey, we don't want to be too close to you because this is hurting everybody, man. The price of oil. Can you imagine if China was hit with a 100% increase in the price of oil right now? All those factories, all those cities, all those millions of cars. What would happen? What would happen in Europe just coming to a recovery? And the King of Saudi Arabia is not a young man. He was just in New York getting medical attention. If something happens in Saudi Arabia with him, and there's internal turmoil, even the hint of it, and you listen to what they say, markets don't like instability. If there's any instability coming to Saudi Arabia, it doesn't matter that the US has a military base there. They won't be able to put in their puppet anymore because it doesn't work that way. Because of social media, so many young people, the Arab country is ripe with young people who want to see change. And if there's any instability in Saudi Arabia and oil goes up $50, $60, $100 a barrel, the whole world will come to its knees. That makes the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia the most powerful country in the world, and the King of Saudi Arabia the most powerful man on the face of this world.
So what
I'm Tim Gottlieb. I'm Jewish and I'm gay.
Democrats have dogged Trudeau on the campaign trail, escalating on Friday with the cancellation of an event. Other party leaders have
genders. At one point, biologists were allowed to determine what biology was, and there were two, male and female. Now there's agender, bigender, two-spirit, hydra, we could go on forever. Literally forever, because the core orthodoxy.
Welcome back. I wanted to take through a look at the police chase that we had early this morning. Now you're looking at the video from early today where we had that car, the red car right here with the suspect, and this was one of the areas where he got off right there at I-25 at Thornton Parkway. Almost was caught by the officers there trying to join the highway. Goes southbound up Peoria. Here on Peoria, dives around, look at her at 64th Avenue, nearly hits some other cars, and this is where I thought he was going to get caught. He ended up, I thought, he was going to get caught. He ended up into a parking lot area here. That is really a parking lot area here. That is really a no man's land here on 69th Avenue. He decides to go up into the grass over the curb there, and you can see there's no. Tries to get out of the car and tries to carjack that guy in the BMW. He
the anger palpable.
Are the people that they listen to. The silent majority, as you know, are always silent.
Makes them feel big when actually inside they're small. But you, just to clarify, did you mean
instead just being some wild, undomesticated creature that's trying to steal your food.
Scary chase that lasted about 45 minutes or so this morning, and thankfully it didn't turn out worse than it could have as we were watching this entire thing unfold.
Has passed to find Alex Hunt.
This I pledge you on my honor as a Roman.
What he's got! A scorpion! The winning!
тархын юу Элдэж буцаа гэсэн үгэндээ эзэн болгүй андгаар юу Эцэг их дахижсэн үнэ зургаад үгүй болдгон юу Яг усмал чодон тэжтэй хэртгүй юм бэ юу Дэлхий ганцхан Монгол гээд аммаад дуртай юу Эцэр амьдрах саяан хүрсэн Монгол түмэн нэгдэж чадгүй юу Тархан Монгол усаман дожууд надад сэргэж чадгүй юу
The Black Stone of Mecca, or Kaaba stone, is a Muslim relic, which according to Islamic tradition dates back to the time of Adam and Eve. It is the eastern cornerstone of the Kaaba, the ancient sacred stone building towards which Muslims pray, in the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The stone is a dark rock, polished smooth by the hands of millions of pilgrims, that has been broken into a number of fragments cemented into a silver frame in the side of the Kaaba. Although it has often been described as a meteorite, this hypothesis is still under consideration. It is the eastern cornerstone of the Kaaba, the ancient sacred stone building towards which Muslims pray, in the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The stone is roughly 30 centimeters, 12 inches, in diameter, and 1.5 meters, 5 feet, above the ground. When pilgrims circle the Kaaba as part of the Tawaf ritual of the Hajj, many of them try, if possible, to stop and kiss the black stone, emulating the kiss that it received from the Islamic prophet Muhammad. If they cannot reach it, they are to point to it on each of their 7 circuits around the Kaaba. The stone is broken into a number of pieces from damage which was inflicted during the Middle Ages. The pieces are held together by a silver frame, which is fastened by silver nails to the stone. There are various opinions as to what the black stone actually is. Muslims say that the stone was found by Ibrahim, and his son Ismail, when they were searching for stones with which to build the Kaaba. They recognized its worth and made it one of the building's cornerstones. Secular historians point to the history of stone worship, and especially meteorite worship, in pre-Islamic Arabia, and say that it is likely that the stone is a meteorite. There is no way to test this hypothesis without removing and examining the stone, which would not be permitted by its guardians. There is no indication as to where the stone originated, but since it predates the revelation of the Holy Quran and Muhammad's prophethood, and even kissed, it must stem from the time of Abraham, since the Hajj traditions are traceable to the patriarch of monotheism. The Kaaba at Mecca describes the shape of the black stone structure on a marble base which stands in the center court of the Great Mosque, Masjid al-Haram, at the center of Mecca. It stands about 50 feet high by about 35 feet wide. Set into the eastern corner is the sacred stone. This Kaaba is a cube-shaped temple rebuilt by Abraham and his son Ishmael. Reverently draped in black cloth throughout the year, it beckons to every Muslim of the world to come to its sacred ground. The Kaaba, is the canonical center of the Islamic world, and every pious act, particularly prayer, is directed toward it.
We see you. The scales have fallen from our eyes. The veil has drifted down from the sky, meandering firmly, finally revealing your depth of depravity. That's fear you're now feeling. We see you. Your demonic bloodlust laid bare to see. The statue of filth on the BBC. The prince and the madam, the Crispus spy. The islands of horrors in the ocean lie. We see you. 1 billion souls stolen over the years. You hid them deep down to drown their tears. Perfect and innocent, God's own creations, mutilated by your sick machinations. We see you. Vlad the Impaler and his vile descendants, fleeing the palace from the 5D ascendants. The virus distracted, but gave us the time to peel back the layers of your heinous crimes. We see you. Run, run, as fast as you can, back for more orders from the Phoenician clan. Out of White Rabbit, the looking glass cracked. Tipping point reached, odds against you now stack. We see you. Pizza and hot dogs, pasta and sauce. Your sickness decoded your lack of remorse. Our slumber is over, our eyes not wide shut. For the children of Haiti, a knife to your gut. We see you. Ascension is powered by the light of the flare. Scramble like rats to the ruins of your lairs. It's over, it's over. Save our children, we cry. Revealed, reviled. It's your soul's time to die. We see you.